undefeated. I did catch the game against SMU pretty much every play. Big day for Eric McAllister in particular. I'm counting 3 touchdowns, and I believe he had a ball taken out of his hands in the end zone for an interception, and he really probably did catch another touchdown pass.
He was robbed. ACC officials,
Yeah,
call him
he was
out.
robbed. There you go. Could have had 5 touchdown passes, so
Yeah.
a huge day for him, and of course, Josh Hoover with a nice day as well, with over 5 touchdown passes for him. So talk a little SMU. That had to feel good after giving up 66 to those guys last year.
Yeah, I mean, this was the final game that is on the schedule for the Iron Skillet rivalry, a rivalry that's over 100 years old. If you're going to have a rivalry game end, you want that trophy to stay on your side of town. So I think it meant a lot to TCU. Obviously, there's SMU having their coach that brought them back out of the death penalty come over to Fort Worth, and SMU obviously put on a clinic a season ago, and so for TCU to get that win and to kind of have to gut it out and grit it out a little bit, I think was huge. And at the end of the day, they're 3-0. They finished their preseason undefeated. They're one of only 2 teams in the country to play 11 Power 4 games, and they've won their first 2. So not the prettiest game, not the best game I've seen TCU play, but Eric McAllister made 2 massive plays late. We saw Jamel Johnson pick off 2 balls after Kevin Jennings had a near perfect 3.5 quarters, but Johnson made 2 great plays. So it's really hard to be great every week, I think, in college football, but you want your team to be really good when it counts, and TCU played a really great fourth quarter, and that was fun to see.
It's always difficult to pinpoint what are going to be the biggest games in this conference because it's so even, but this one hit me, and about 2 minutes before I DM'd you on Twitter, because I thought, man, okay, we got this one on Friday night. This is a good one. TCU, Arizona State on the road. Of course, Sun Devils got tripped up outside the conference, but within the Big 12, obviously, we're just getting started. So this is a game I don't think we saw last year, correct?
No, this will be TCU and Arizona State's first time playing. I looked this up for my show on Sunday night. I'm pretty sure it was 1935. So either 1935 or 55. So it's been a while. Arizona State got that first one. So a little time for some revenge, hopefully, for the Horned Frogs Friday night.
All right. It's been a while coming, but yeah, this one of these new matchups in the Big 12, and this one, should be a really good one. So based on what you've seen out of the Horned Frogs the first 3 weeks, obviously you made the trip to Chapel Hill to check out the enormous win against North Carolina after giving up a touchdown. Then it was all TCU from there. Then the kind of week off against Abilene Christian, then this big win against SMU. So based on what you were expecting out of this team, now that we're a quarter of the way through the regular season, what's sizing up in what departments in meeting expectations versus maybe some concerns?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Hoover's good. He's really good. He's potentially elite. I think it's almost inarguable at this point that he's a top 5 quarterback in college football. I mean, he's certainly the most underrated quarterback in college football. He's put up 3 consecutive really incredible performances. And even when he was not his sharpest on Saturday, I mean, he did not look like the Josh Hoover we saw against UNC and ACU, against the best pass rush he's faced. But he wasn't super sharp, and you look up and all of a sudden he's got 374 yards and 5 touchdowns. So Eric McAllister helped him out a lot, with those 2 big, long breakaways. But Hoover has been really good. The offensive line has held up in pass protection, I think, really well. SMU is the first team to really get to Hoover and cause him to move. But Kendall Briles did something with Hoover we have not seen in his 2.5 years as a starter, and that was unleash his legs. We saw him run for a first down on a 4th and 4 early in the game. We saw him scramble to find open throws down the field. The first touchdown to McAllister, that was on a scramble and a kind of a broken play. And he used his feet really well to evade pressure when he needed to, and just kind of went toe-to-toe with Kevin Jennings, who is one of the most dynamic players in college football and probably played his most accurate game of his career on Saturday against TCU. So I think the offenses look good. There's some question marks in the running game. Trent Battle came in and he was really solid. Jeremy Payne and Nate Palmer have had some good runs. John Denman's a true freshman, but according to the injury report that was coming out just kind of right before we started recording, Kevorian Barnes is going to miss a second straight game at Arizona State, and he's been kind of the downhill runner and the chain mover of this unit. A transfer portal kid out of UTSA that was incredible his freshman year and then kind of struggled through injuries and not being fully right the last 2 seasons. So that's a big loss for TCU offensively. There's just not that kind of hit the hole and go guy with Barnes out. So it'll be interesting to see, schematically what they do against a really, really good front four at Arizona State and a really good linebacking core. But I'd say the offense is the thing I'm least worried about because Hoover and McAllister and Dwyer and Manjack, is playing with no socks, no gloves. I was shocked he has a helmet on sometimes. I mean, each of those guys has had a 100-yard game this season. So the offense seems to really be clicking. Defensively, I still have some questions. The pass rush, I think, hasn't been super elite without the blitz. They were without Zachary Chapman on Saturday. Let me look. I should have checked that. I do not see him listed on the injury report going, so he should be back. That's huge for the Frogs. The linebacking core has been solid, if not spectacular. But I have a lot of faith in Caleb Elarmzor, and Nnamdi Obiezar has been around forever. So those guys are really just fundamentally sound. And then the secondary we thought would be a great strength. Give credit to Kevin Jennings, who threw in tight windows and was super accurate. But we've seen both ACU and SMU kind of have moments of having great success against that TCU secondary. So I think there's another gear for that unit to take. Channing Canada got dinged up a little bit as far as he gave up some big plays. Avery Helm is going to be out again on Friday. He's barely played this season. So that's probably my biggest question mark defensively is can they bother Sam Levitt, another really mobile, athletic quarterback, and can they prevent the big plays, especially when you look across the line of scrimmage and know Jordan Tyson's going to be out there. So I don't think we've seen TCU secondary play its best of what they're capable of playing. I wouldn't say they've been bad, but I think there's another level where they can really step it up in conference play. Everybody that watches Josh play that knows about quarterback play goes, yeah, this is an elite college quarterback who has a chance to be a pro for sure. And so I hope that he gets a little bit more attention. But my favorite thing about him is he could care less. He just wants to play football, go fishing, go to class, and be a good teammate. That's it. He does not care whatsoever.
Well, Melissa, when you mentioned a guy that kind of has something intangible there at the end of the ball game, I think of the guy that you had playing the position in 2022.
Yeah. Max Duggan was pretty good, one of those guys too. And, I think that when you look at the leadership and the intangibles, Max, TCU's had a lot of those guys. Max, Andy Dalton was another one of those guys. You can go back for decades and think of those guys that just had that juice about them. And Josh is that same kind of leader. When you look at his offseason and Tennessee came and threw a big bag at him, they wanted him badly. And if Tennessee wanted him pretty badly, that probably tells you everything you need to know. He turned down more money to stay at TCU. I'm sure he got a little raise, and good for him, absolutely. Be what you're worth. But he could have left. He could have gone into a bidding war. He could have come back, and there was a couple players that left TCU that are playing for highly top 5 programs right now that did the same thing. He didn't try to say, you're going to have to match this. He just went to TCU and said, hey, this is what's been offered. And TCU, he didn't say he wanted more or he needed more, but TCU came back and said, this is what we can do for you. And he was like, yeah, I'm not leaving. I'm good. And he doesn't want to leave. He really believes in TCU. He's a local kid. Sonny Dykes believed in him way back when. And it's really special when you have somebody who you look at on the field and you say, this kid's really good. And you talk to off the field and you go, man, this is a kid I'm proud that wears the uniform of the school I went to. And I've had quite a few of those guys over the years.
ASU's in a little bit of a trouble from a personnel standpoint. Injury wise, they got really lucky last year. And I'm going to go and say to win a championship, it just doesn't take being good. You have to be lucky. And ASU got very lucky last year in that they didn't have a lot of injuries, and they're really limping badly right now. They're missing Xavier Alford, one of the best players in their secondary. They're missing their nickel, Montana Warren. And in practice this week, today they lost their corner. And then 5 minutes after he went down, the guy that replaced him went down. I don't know if they're anything serious. I checked the injury report, and one of the players was not listed, and the other player was listed as probable. So maybe they're not too serious, but they're just kind of running on fumes in the secondary right now. And that doesn't bode well when you're playing a team like TCU and a quarterback like Josh Hoover that can throw the ball. So I'm a little bit concerned with that matchup. Now, when you look at what they did last week, where they really did kind of slow Sawyer Robertson down a little bit, maybe that's the formula in this one too, where you keep the ball on the ground and pound and 5-6 yards a clip, which ASU did that very, very well last week and kept the ball out of Baylor's hands. So maybe they have that strategy again. We'll see.
Yeah. So how is that, without looking at the box score, because I did not see the Baylor game, how is that running back distribution looking like?
ASU had about 14 more minutes in time of possession, and that's pretty significant. And again, they just kind of kept the ball on the ground. Now, last week they only had 2 running backs. They had Raleek Brown and Kanye Udo. This week they're going to have Kyson Brown back full strength. He was listed as available last week, but he only carried the ball a couple of times. He really wasn't full go. So Kyson Brown should be more of a full go this week, and that will help. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did that again and they kept the ball on the ground.
So obviously it begins on offense with Sam Levitt, one of the top players in the country at his position entering the season. I see 21 of 32 against Baylor and 221 yards, did not get picked off. Has he lived up to the expectations, considering that Arizona State's, I don't want to say one of the few teams in the country, but probably in the minority that they've already played 2 substantial opponents, unlike a lot of teams?
I don't think he's lived up to what he can do. Now, it's a little bit tricky because when you look at the Mississippi State game, that was just kind of just a strange game. And for some reason, that was his worst game last year, was Mississippi State last year. And I don't know. I think he's capable of doing more. I just think he's been a tad off, whether it's throws a little bit high or a little bit short or missing guys down the middle. I just think he's just not quite settled in yet. And maybe that's because our expectations of him are so high, given what he did last year, and you expected him to build on that. So the Mississippi State game, he wasn't good. I'd say last week he was decent, but I definitely think that he's better than what he's shown so far. And it's early.
And again, we're just looking at the stats from the Baylor game. And again, everyone, Arizona State walked off with a field goal in this one, 27-24. Jordan Tyson, obviously the star, who missed most of last season, or down the stretch last season, 7 catches, but only 43 yards. How are they approaching the receiving targets? Are they spreading things out, or?
No, they're not at all.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of been a big problem right now. They're still looking for a number 2 guy. Who is going to be the guy on the outside opposite of Jordan Tyson to keep teams from double teaming him and putting all the focus on him? And I actually added up the numbers today. Now I got to see if I can remember this off the top of my head. So there's out of 72 catches, I think Jordan Tyson's got like 32 of them. And then the running backs have, I think, 19 catches. And then the tight ends have 16 catches. So when you look at wide receivers not named Jordan Tyson, there are 2 receivers that have caught a total of 6 passes. So they really are looking for that number 2 guy. I thought it was going to be Jaron Hamilton, the transfer from Alabama, who can really, really fly. He just kind of hasn't found his niche yet. Malik McClain, I thought he had potential. He just seems to be caught up. He seems to get a holding penalty and an offsides every game. So, I mean, and then Jalen Moss, the transfer from Fresno State, he was a potential guy, but he's been sidelined now. This will be 3 weeks that he's been out with different ailments. So I think that kind of is one of the problems with the offense, is they're still trying to find that other guy, if you want to call him the other guy.
So, Michelle, to flip back to the defense, because you led with the injury report and your concerns in the secondary, obviously the best way to protect a thin secondaries with a pass rush. So how has ASU been in that department this year?
Actually, much better than last year. That was a real big flaw last year. They've been much better in that regard this year. I believe they've got 11 sacks. 2 weeks ago, they had 5 sacks in a game, and that was the most they had a game in 2 years. So in that regard, I think they're doing much, much better. And they've got a lot of personnel. They're pretty deep on the defensive line. So I think they're very good in that regard. I think Clayton Smith is going to have a big year. He's had a pretty good first few games. And I think he's a draft guy. And he's just a freak athlete with his size and his reach. So I think Clayton Smith is the guy that's kind of leading the charge there. So I think that they're going to definitely do that. They're going to use that and try and, contain Hoover.
Okay, Michelle, my favorite question before we let you go is basically, especially in a situation like this, where a lot of people that watch their team on Saturday don't see Arizona State play, but this being the best game on a Friday night opposite Florida State, Virginia, but a more important game, we would think. A lot of people are going to see ASU for the first time this year. Anybody that you've not mentioned that could pop off the screen, maybe a little under the radar, that are keys to this game?
Okay, the guy that I think doesn't get enough publicity is their cornerback, Keith Abney. And I think he's going to be a draft guy too. He's a junior. He was the starter there last year. I don't think he's given up a touchdown. I think I saw something today where he hasn't given up a touchdown in coverage. I believe he was the number 1 ranked Big 12 cornerback last week. And I think he was second in all of the FBS. So I like Keith Abney. And just the kind of the way this kid is, he had a PI that was called on him in the Baylor game, and it was a drive that Baylor eventually scored. And it was kind of one of those either way PIs where, some games it's called, some games it's not. And then 5 minutes later, Keith Abney picks off a ball thrown by Robertson. And so he's just kind of that dog mentality. And he doesn't get phased when something, gets called against him. And so I think Keith Abney is one of these guys that's not getting enough love nationwide.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic, previewing Arizona State taking on TCU. It's a big Friday night matchup in the Big 12. Check out Michelle's work there at Arizona Republic. You see her X/Twitter handle. Michelle, we always appreciate you stopping by, setting us straight on the Sun Devils.
Anytime.